can tell you a little about me, though. I used to be a journalist. I
Great.
used to
Nice.
I used to be the overnight announcer at CFNY The Edge, and I worked for CBC, The Star, Village Voice in New York, a bunch of publications. Then I started to work for a multimedia company called Extend Media, and it was one of those ridiculous um, .com companies that had beer
Mm.
fridges and pool tables and hammocks everywhere, and a massage room and Jesus, it was now that I think about it, and I'll talk about it to people, and I'm like, yeah, and we had a barista and fresh, bagels every morning and fresh fruit, and but that was a long time ago. But yeah, so I did that, and then while I was working there as a single parent, I developed my first brain tumor, and so I've been ever since then kind of fighting. I've had 4 brain surgeries and radiation and all that stuff, and bitch, not dead. You know, I went into a party on Saturday night and somebody yells out, "Look, Erella, bitch, not dead yet." And I'm like, okay, you got it. Yeah. So I'm doing very well. But I'll give you background on building a better Bloor Dufferin.
Okay.
I'm not convinced that, our team is pretty formidable. We have an amazing group, and some of them are really good at the statistics and numbers, and I'm really kind of the overview person. But I'll just give you a little bit of a background, and if when the next person joins us, you need me to repeat something, I will. But
Okay.
basically, a long time ago, the Toronto District School Board decided that they had this hunk of surplus land at Bloor and Dufferin.
Mhm.
And they originally asked a group of people in the area, I was one of them, to assess possible um, proposals from different developers. So we talked to a bunch of developers, but in the end, the Toronto District School Board just sort of said, nah, ignore what those people said. We're going to go with
Mhm.
this developer, which weirdly enough was not the highest money one or the best for the community one. It whatever. Anyway, um, so we negotiated a deal which included $17 million. $15 million went to launch our affordable housing land trust, and 2 million went to launch the CCST, of which I am a board member, which is a community spaces land trust, because we
Yeah.
that there needs to be community spaces as well as affordable places to live. Like we have to decide what kind of city we want to live in. And oh, I see the other person, Eileen. Is that how her name is pronounced?
Yes.
Hi.
You're on mute. We still can't hear you.
You have to unmute yourself. No, I don't hear you. I'm going to continue giving a background. Eileen, I'm just giving a little bit of a background on the BBBD site, and then and you're just getting the boring background stuff now, and now I'm coming to the part that is most relevant anyway, so you're not missing much. But basically, so we got that. We also got this other building, which we call Building F, which will be on Brock, which will have 59 units. 100% of them will be affordable. And the way that we organized it is the developer is going to build the building, and then the city is going to own the affordable housing unit, and they manage it, and not because otherwise what can sometimes happen is the developer's nephew or something, the affordable housing spaces get filled up by, I don't know, connected people instead of a more
Yeah.
way.
I think that's what I was gonna actually ask you something about, or if you knew about that, like in terms of affordable housing versus like condos and how they'll make sure that people will be able to afford the affordable housing opposed to like people, again, like you said,
Well,
developers, nephews or
there
something.
there are two matrices for this
Mhm.
in general, but what they're doing at the Galleria Mall is, I think, bullshit. I'm no fan. And they're doing something called a lottery. So basically you put in your application, and of the applicable people, someone does a lottery, but there's no accountability to that. And I
Mhm.
like it. I was representing BBBD, Building a Better Bloor Dufferin. I represented our group when the development at the Dufferin Mall was going on. And
Okay.
there, the city councilor said, "Hey, you guys, look, I managed to get 10 affordable housing units out of 1,000 for a period of 10 years." And so I was representing our group, and I was like,
Mhm.
gotta be kidding. Anyway, in the end, we got 120 units for a period of
Okay,
99
nice.
years. But we put in a caveat that a nonprofit organization, in this case, I think it's the two nonprofit organizations that I generally endorse are either
Mhm.
Habitat for Humanity or Claire's for Affordable Housing, because they're both honest and equitable. But affordable
Mhm.
housing, there are two ways of doing it. One, which I think is problematic for an area like ours, because in so one is rent geared to income. So it's
Mhm.
called RJI, rent geared to income, which I think is the most logical, because if you have whatever. But the other one is I can't remember what it's called, but it's taking an average salary of the neighborhood. So if there are millionaires within their condos and there are people living in a shelter, they take the median, which ends up being something like, $3,000 for one bedroom is considered affordable by that matrix, which doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But at the what used to be Honest Ed's at that site, you know,
Yeah.
they didn't have the experience that our group has when they were negotiating it. And I'm not really but they're using lotteries and a weird
Yeah.
mix, and they have also a time limit. And my feeling is, if a building if a building is going up in perpetuity, then the affordable housing units in that building need to go up in perpetuity as well. But I
For
digress.
sure. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I think like again, I think the biggest talk about it is that affordable housing versus condo, and like you said, the median range, and I feel like that's what a lot of these developers are kind of basing their rent upon, and that's why even for places that are just regular apartments, the rent is skyrocketing through the roof because now there are condos being built around us, but it's like you're kind of screwed if you're still there or if you move. It's like for me personally, being about 26 now, it's virtually impossible to even think about living anywhere else other than what I'm currently living because the fear of rent raising
Well, but I mean,
is
I give a lot of talks to other
Mhm.
organizations who are fighting this kind of what do they call that? Renovictions. For example,
Mm,
there's a building on St. George Street, and the majority of the people who live in that building have lived there more than 15 years. And
yeah.
those apartments are gorgeous and big and smart, and they're in fine shape. But the owner of that building sold it to a developer who wants to knock down that building and
Mm,
put up condos. And all those people who have rent that they can afford, which isn't necessarily affordable rent, suddenly all those people are going to have to, are fighting hard. And
yeah.
because we have Doug Ford in power, and make no mistake, Pierre Poilievre, who's fighting Trudeau, he's going to be 10 times worse than Ford. Um, I'm I really I fear for young people.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting kind of concept to have to take in as well, because again, even talking about the Bloor Dufferin area and them breaking down Bloor Collegiate and Kent and schools like that, where I don't know how much Kent was used as like recent times,
Oh, no, it
but
was. One
it
second.
was that's what I
It
wasn't sure.
there was a Spanish language community thing at the Toronto School of Art. There was a deaf community. I mean, it had been absolutely used in recent
Okay.
years. But
Yeah.
and really, I think the next fight is going to be Ossington Old Orchard Public School, because when
Mm.
my daughter went to that school, I mean, and really, we haven't even started to talk about the issue right now, but the Ossington Old Orchard Public School, when my daughter was a child, she went to school she'd enter from the Ossington side. One sec, the school gets called Oops, OOOPS, Ossington Old
Yeah.
Orchard Public School. So when she attended, she'd enter from Ossington, but some of the classes were in the building that faces Dovercourt. There were two public schools.
Mm.
And then they changed the funding formula. So the Dovercourt School, that building still belongs to the TDSB, but one sec, hang on one second. Let me just see what this is. Hang on. Hello?
Elaine, it would be a good time to check your audio.
No, I have a friend who's in hospital and they've been calling me by WhatsApp. So since that was a WhatsApp call, I thought, okay. But but anyway, I think that that space between Ossington and Dovercourt, which is
Hmm.
basically space now, I think the TDSB is going to try to sell that to some condo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because sorry,
No, no.
Jason, were you gonna say something?
Oh, no, Eileen's saying something, but we can't hear her.
No, I think you need to go into your set or like rejoin the meeting.
Or come by phone. You could just come by phone and then we could hear you.
That too, yeah.
Or you could do both. You could come by phone,
I think she might rejoin.
but if she
I think.
came by phone, we could see her by, do both.
Right.
So her
Yeah, that too.
separate. So if someone could illustrate that. But anyway, but I think the problem is that Doug Ford is starving our education system of money, so they have to look at selling land to just subsist. And really, with cyber
Hmm.
hacking and everything, really, if he was really a visionary leader, he would talk about ways to educate our youth so that they can all become cyber hacking brilliance.
Really,
Oh,
I understand where you're coming from with that, because again, like we're talking about building a better Bloor Dufferin and just community space and the lack thereof. And I think that even how they took the kids at Bloor Collegiate and put them in a different school and how that affects them, but no one's really thinking about the bigger
mhm.
picture of the youth and what's going to happen to them and like how that stuff kind of affects their lives. It's a lot more on the basis of how can we get more money through living arrangements and rent increase and things like that.
But you see, the point is our education system, our educators should only be thinking about education. They shouldn't be
Mhm.
thinking how to monetize things and where they can save money. And really, when they cut off the school on Dovercourt,
Mhm.
what ended up happening is classes started having to happen in the boiler room in the basement, and they had to happen in the library, and they had to pick up a portable, and this
Yeah.
thing, what is the overall effect to the kids? I mean, and really that should be the number one thing that our educators should be thinking about. But anyway, back to the reason we're here. And Ellen, are you
Sorry.
here now? Okay, Ellen, my idea for you is to phone in and keep yourself on computer screen, and then that way we'd hear you by phone and we'd see you by the computer. Can you do both at once? So then that way we could hear you. But anyway, so the reason we're here today is because on Valentine's Day, February 14th, one of my colleagues saw that there was a new notice in front of the Kent School saying there's a minor variance planned. And the developer and the city planner looked at it and they said, looks fine to me. So what happened was that minor variance is from the developer side of it, that they said that they looked at it and though they promised us initially 70,000 square feet and then 30,000 square feet. And then they said the bottom 2 floors of Kent School is 30,000. Why don't we just give you the bottom 2 floors and we fulfill that mandate to give you 30,000 square feet. But what happened was the architect, all the way through for years and years and years, we've asked to get blueprints. Can we get information about what exactly is at Kent School? Can we use it? You know, we had dance companies and they were saying we were going to have a performance space, but we couldn't get in there and we couldn't get blueprints. We couldn't get the statistics of what they're actually giving us. And we just sort of went, okay, we're going to have to trust them. And they say it's 30,000 square feet. It's 30,000 square feet. So what ended up happening is about a month ago, the developer, in this case, it's Fitzrovia, they looked at that space and they went, oh, wait, we said it was 30,000 square feet. It's actually 30,000 square feet minus 2,800. And what that really means is then they went to the city planner and said, no harm, no foul. You know, we are saying we're giving the community 30,000 square feet, but we're giving them 2,800 less. Is that okay with you? City council, the city planner, Kirk Hatcher, said, sure. So we said, wait a sec. We had party status. Oh, can we hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You might have to
Okay.
mute yourself. Yeah.
I'll,
Yeah.
what?
You're going to have to mute one of them. Oh, no, now I don't hear you at all.
I don't know if you have headphones, I would say put headphones in and then use the phone so that we're not getting the feedback.
Exactly. Okay, back to this. So they said what they wanted was to do this. We went to the OLT, which is the Ontario Land Tribunal, and we had party status, which is something that Doug Ford has made impossible. Two of the things that he's made impossible recently since that went in is for a community group to have access to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Now you need to pay a fee of $10,000, which is very undemocratic. And the other thing he took away was Section 37 money. So we got this community hub in the bottom 2 floors of Kent School as a part of this Section 37 or community benefits. And now that does no longer exist. Thank you, Doug Ford. So, so we wanted to fight for those 2,800 square feet because we think that it's not insignificant and we fought for it. And if they're making a change, then every party, we had party status at the OLT. So every party, like if you and I had a contract and you wanted to change any of the crucial aspects of the contract, you would talk to every member who signed the contract. And we couldn't get that to happen with this group. So we appeared before the OLT, and I can put the link to that in the chat. But before I forget, but anyway, I think that it's important to know. Anyway, so before I get distracted, So we went to the OLT and we said, you know, like, here's my deputation from a month ago. And also you can hear Maureen, who's the executive director of West Neighborhood House, and they're the main tenant for the community hub. And then Lynn and me from BBBD, and then Alejandra Bravo, our city councilor. She went on and on in a really beautiful I can't, a nicer word for rant, but she went on about the significance of Bloor Collegiate and what it means to the community to have that, to have lost that auditorium that we all used to use for community meetings. So we've had numerous meetings with the various developers, the council, the land planners, a city councilor's office, and we're just trying to find a way that we can, you know, like we said, look, if you're taking 2,800 square feet out of Kent School for us, why don't you give us the main floor of Building F, the affordable housing building, add another floor above it, give us the main floor, and we'll have an auditorium there for the community. You know, why don't we've come up with really creative solutions, and basically we're at a bit of an impasse now. We have another, we have until April, I think 17th. And we're still meeting with the counselor and the developers.
And is the community space, so one of the frustrations that I find with bureaucracy, the word community hub has never been actually materialized with other downtown communities. And we understand that there's complexity, or there's a focus on affordable housing, but there's also a need to focus on the dislocation of youth and youth spaces. Parks are not necessarily utilized by youth because of our climate. We tend to be under snow for a majority of the year. So parks are not necessarily utilized year round by the folks that are being dislocated by the schools that were part of those lands that were originally utilized for. So having that in mind, is there an opportunity to sort of get creative in terms of how that community hub space was intended to be used? I know community hubs was intended for like health services, for example, as part of the community, or some sort of dislocation of immigrants or something of that sort. But is there an opportunity of sort of understanding on how else it could be utilized, and not necessarily only the tenants that are part of affordable housing? Because affordable housing is not really necessarily...
Let me just tell you, so I was a part of the team that determined what was going to happen with that hub. So you got the right girl here. But we had 7 tenants assigned, and what we wanted was, we wanted places where kids could go and do homework after school, and community groups could gather. But unfortunately, because the Kent School has like immovable spaces inside, because it was built, you know, with thick walls as classrooms, the 2 dance companies that were initially going to use that space have had to pull away. I know that there's an association of blind adults that's going to use part of that space, but Maureen Fair, she's the executive director at West Neighborhood House, and I'll give you her email. She would be the person to talk to about what goes on there. But really, right now, what we need to do, unfortunately, what we need to do right now is to figure out a way to get the space that was promised to us, so that we can do what we need to do with it, you know?
Absolutely. Is there a condition in the original contract when the lands were transferred over to the developer that the consultation onus was really on them and not necessarily the municipality or anything of that sort?
No, the way we worded it, we were our group was very, 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 there's Maureen, but, and she speaks on that last clip I gave you, but, no, we did it very cleverly. We decided that once the thing is built and ready to go, it gets handed over to the city, so the city would own it. So it would become a community center, just like any other community center, which is a really good thing. So it stays equitable. But one of the other organizations, one of the fights I lost was with, I don't know if you're aware of the Matador Ballroom.
No.
That's horrifying that anyone doesn't, but it's going to become a condo anyway. But Leonard Cohen wrote the song Closing Time about the Matador, and it was filmed there. I was there when that was shot. But everyone from Johnny Cash to Pink to everyone performed at the Matador. It was an overnight, it was a what did they call that?
After hours, would you say?
After hours
Yeah.
place. And the bands, and it was a really lively, wonderful place. But anyway, a guy bought it in 2007, and he had big plans to open it. The city gave him lots of runarounds. It took him 7 years to get the building permit to just move the partitions in the ladies' room. And he just ran out of money and sold it to a developer in the end. But when he was making plans for that, I was very much involved in, Save the Matador campaigns. And the problem, and one of the things we were talking about is, because it's a ballroom with a sprung dance floor, one of 3 in North America, it has like balls under the wooden floor. So when you dance, the floor undulates in a beautiful way. It's made for dancing. And we don't have anything else like that. It's a historical building. Anyway, we talked about, since during school hours, the beautiful stage and the auditorium is not being used. So we talked about making it available for schools, making it available because it was soundproofed, making it available for rehearsal spaces for young emerging artists. We had all sorts of ideas about ways to integrate this into the community better, and now it's going to be a condo building. So I mean, with the Kent School Community Hub, we have lots of plans, but I mean, right now we're fighting to get the space that was promised to us. That's the fight right now.
In our discussions, now that the council has sort of giving you or granted you guys a delay for the month in terms of continue the negotiations on how to gain back those 2,800 square feet, how is it that you continue to sort of continue that collaborative conversation? How are you hoping to continue to sort of keep them transparent or honest at the table?
I don't know. Like there's nothing. Like really, there's no way to keep them accountable or really what's happening is city planning, really it would be a lot easier for them if we weren't here. They said, the developer says, here, sign this, and they say, okay, next. That would have been way easier. We're making things difficult. The developer, it would be way easier if the community just said, oh, you want to give us 2,800 square feet less? Sure, that sounds good. But, it's not like there are rule books here, and all of us have extremely busy lives. I can't even begin to tell you, our team is so insanely busy.
So it's almost like you're being like backed into a corner to either agree or you don't get it.
Well, I mean, there are lots of threats being made. Like really, if they wanted to back away from the deal, like just say, you know what, we're going to sell this whole. So we made a deal with one developer who sold it to another developer who sold it to 2 developers. So right now, Hazelview and Fitzrovia own it, the 7.3 acres of land, right?
Yeah.
But if Hazelview, which is the one who technically owns the Kent School Hub, if they say, you know what, this is too much trouble, we're going to sell it to our buddies at Hallmark or whatever, one of the other big developers, Daniels or whatever, we're going to hand it over to Daniels. And really, there's nothing that tells Daniels that they have to agree to the provisions that we fought at city council, at the OLT, that we fought those things. So they could take their bat and ball and leave if they wanted to. And there's nothing really that would make them deal with it. I mean, luckily in our group, which other groups, like I do a lot of work at Weston Road and Lawrence these days, they have an artscape building there. And what is happening in that area is reprehensible, but they don't have a community like mine that'll fight and say, you know what, you want to do this? We have, 300 people on a mailing list that are going to fight you, like there's nothing. And so why is it that the community at the foot of Yonge Street is getting 100-story tower there? Well, if there was a community group in that area to hold the developers to account, then that would be fine. But there's no opposition, so they go, okay, 100, and city council goes, okay. So really, it's the community groups that sit around and pay for parking, pay for daycare, attend these stupid meetings and get nowhere. But if not for these community groups, and clearly the people at Mount Dennis like what's happening at Jane and Shepherd is reprehensible. There's not enough being done for the community. And though I talked to other community leaders, I was at a Zoom meeting last night for Little Jamaica, and just sharing what I've learned. I'm a part of that team, and I work damn hard to make sure that what I've learned gets distributed to other people who can institute change. But really, the elected officials, the developers, and the people who are paid to watch for what is happening are overworked, and they would rather there were fewer of me around.
How is it that we're able to create more of you, especially amongst the young people? I would love to hear a little bit in terms of some of the ways that younger generations are able to start to create a voice within the communities that they're being dislocated from. I myself grew up at Bloor and Dufferin and have been involved with the project at the initial transaction that happened, what the original intent was, but would love to hear in terms of how is it that we're able to support the young people that are part of our organization, for example, to start creating organized community groups such as yours to make sure that they don't get overlooked or not heard at all.
But I mean, look, for the Bloor, the Dufferin Grove Park, there was a development that we renovated the clubhouse in the northwest corner. And right now we're nearing the end of that project. So we managed to get the clubhouse reopened, and we're trying to get people engaged, and we invite people, but especially young people who've got, I'm sorry, what are the Kardashians doing right now? Oh yeah. It's like to try to get, the young people in my life. Look, I live on a really tiny little street. There are only houses on one side of the street and garages on the other. And it's like our street doesn't exist, but there are tons of young people. And I talk to the young folks, and I say, come with me to these meetings. Right now, I am fighting Parks and Rec, our city councillor, capital project, and the developer who was in charge of the renovation at Bloor and Dufferin. I want to go over what was promised for the Dufferin Park, and I want to make sure we get access to it. We just had a fire in our biggest park oven, and we're trying to find a way to make sure that it is usable. And I'm having a big party for myself in June because it's my birthday, but it's also the 21st anniversary of this neighborhood group that I run called Friends of Dufferin Grove Park. So I want to make sure that the oven is operational so that we can do pizzas and baked potatoes and stuff, and we can invite the community and make it a big community thing. I'm turning 65, And I want to
Nice.
have
Good.
yeah, I want to have a big party because look, I've had, 4 brain surgeries and I live with a brain tumor, and it is not easy to make these things work with, the drugs that I take 6 times a day. Like I have my own challenges, and I need to be able to bring in young people, and I'm constantly I now have a young mentor from U of T, and our group, so originally the building of Better Bloor Dufferin got $17 million. And might I add that the city councillor at the time said we'd be lucky to get 10 grand out of that development, but we got 17 million. But anyway, and a park and an underground thing and affordable housing and the community hub. But anyway, the 17 million, 15 million went to launch an affordable housing land trust, and 2 million went to launch the CCST, which I'm on the board of. So our CCST, which is a community spaces land trust, and we're trying to, and that we just want to make sure that there are spaces where people are welcome in our community that aren't housing, because we need to have a city that includes free places where people are welcome. And I said to the Dufferin Mall people, I said, look, can we open up the food court so that it's open to just kids doing homework? I just want gathering places so kids aren't climbing my car. I just want to have places where kids are welcome. And I bitch about this stuff all the time, and like really you don't want to get me going about like playground equipment. It used to be there would be a geodesic dome that 5 kids could climb that at once, but instead every park has a slide that only a child between this age and this age can slide down that slide one at a time, or a swing where one child plays at a time. Our park, the Dufferin Grove Park, we have tons of sand where kids work together and they build tunnels and they bring their trucks and put water and make a pool or whatever, but they work collaboratively. And this is how kids learn about social engagement, when they learn about collaborative play. And, we have to think about holistic ways of dealing with people. And, at again, the Dufferin Grove Park, we have a community potluck supper every Friday night where you can either bring something or not, 0 waste. So bring your own cutlery and plate, and there's food. And we just do it. Sometimes it's 6 people, sometimes it's 30, and that's cool. But this is the opposite of the loneliness epidemic that every single city in North America is dealing with. So the more community engagement, the more, getting to know your neighbors, this is the way that we make a better city.
And I think what you said, like
Absolutely.
that term, like sorry, I totally blanked on it as soon as you said, because I heard it and I was like, that's a great thing. But like the loneliness epidemic, I guess, and especially coming out of the pandemic, not to mention like the lack of community spaces. I grew up around the Bloor Bathurst area going to summer camp. And it's like you would think that, yeah, it's just the phones, but a lot of times it's a lack of space generally. For me, I grew up skateboarding, and a lot of times they took away skate parks just to build something else, or just said, you
Well,
can't
that's
be here.
actually the guy on our team who deals with skate parks. His name's Megs. And
I know,
so,
Megs.
yeah, so in the Dufferin Grove Park, we fought hard so that the skateboarders and the basketball nets and, ping pong tables, these places where kids are welcome,
Yeah,
we instituted that so that we can just make sure that these things are up to code and they're working
yeah,
so that we can have this stuff. We also
exactly.
we also fought really hard to have a free skate lending library. So newcomers to
Hmm.
Canada, I mean, at City Hall, it's $12 for an hour to rent out skates. And
Hmm.
here, anyone can rent skates, so you can, learn how to do it. We're making all these little itty bitty changes to make sure that young people, newcomers, everyone is welcome in our park. And
For sure.
but other parks, like go to other parks, there are tumbleweeds whipping around,
Yeah, exactly. Because for me, again, like, I think so, especially in terms of like, I guess skateboarding is like the biggest thing I think of, but like Christie Pitts was a big example where we had the ice rink as a space, but they took it away from us and they had to fight for, I want to say 2 or 3 years just to even get them to lay concrete in the actual pit. But for me, because when it was in the ice rink, that was considerably a safe space, but taking that away means you're moving the safe space now, like we talked about, displacing a lot of youth who found comfort in this, and now it's almost dangerous to be there. So a lot of people don't want to be in the pit because it's more dangerous to be down in the pit because there are just a lot of random things happening, a lot of dangerous things happen. A lot of people I know who've gotten hit by baseballs and things like that. But if you talk to developers, they don't really they kind of want you to be grateful. They said, we gave you the space, so be grateful for it. You
Well,
know?
at Ossington Old Orchard Public School, where my kid
Mhm.
was, while she was a student there, one day, Mike Harris, who is Doug Ford's mentor, he decided to take away all playground equipment from all the TDSB schools. So suddenly there was no schools. So what happened is that playground area between Ossington and Dovercourt, that huge swath of land became kind of dangerous. We'd find needles and, homeless encampments, though it was never like it is now. And so the kids couldn't play. So a bunch of parents, what we did was we painted hopscotch and games on the pavement that existed. And once there were parents there and people playing, then it made the area safer because there were more
Mhm.
people. But when it was abandoned, then it was abandoned. So we had to learn how to make do with what we had access to.
For sure. For sure. And I get that. Like I said, I'm trying to find the proper words to say, but the whole idea of the development project and what you're doing is very important because I think that's what we think about most is like I said, trying to get the youth involved and not just community space for children, because playgrounds and things are important and elementary schools are important, but for the youth who are more likely to maybe find trouble somewhere where they don't have the space.
Exactly. We need to welcome everyone. I mean, one of the
Yeah.
issues we had last summer in our park, again, is ludicrous. So we have a wading pool for children. Surrounding the wading pool, we always had benches so caregivers can watch their kids play in the water. They took away all of the benches. And I said to the head of Parks and Rec, like, what are you thinking? And he said, somebody made a mandate that says every park has to have the same number of benches, and Dufferin Grove has too many. I said, so what did you do with those? Oh, they're in storage. So it's better for them to be in storage than to be here where they're needed. We need to have safe places for elderly people to sit around and watch the kids play and whatever. And the thing about the geodesic domes, it was, at least kids of all ages, even teenagers could go climb that thing. But to have one slide and two swing sets means that kids between this age and this age can play. But the way we used to have, we had a bank of swing sets that were suitable for teenagers, very big, tall swing sets. And, you swing and I'll swing and see who goes higher. And, oh my God, I'm going to go over the top. And, that kind of thing, which is suitable for kids that are suitable for youth. And really, we have very, very, very few, like, where does a 10-year-old kid or a 12-year-old kid go to play? And now that they've put in, like in my day, God, I sound old. In my day, all community centers were free. So kids could go to as much they could go to McCormick's or wherever and use whatever they wanted for free. But even at $3 a pop, it does add up, and kids are not, you know, able to do that. And I think that that's ludicrous, you know.
Yeah,
Mayor,
I agree.
Mayor Chow is making a big deal about she's opening up the Green Pea parking lot lands for development. And I said, super, okay. So there's one at 1117 Dundas at Ossington, a Green Pea parking lot, and they're putting in a development. And I went to the meeting and I said, okay, so 100% of this building should be affordable because that's what we need. No, 22 units out of the 100 are going to be affordable. And I said, how does that make sense? You don't even have to pay for the building. Well, then we can't make a profit. I'm like, this is, you know, Canada Post should not be interested in making a profit. They should not be putting stuff into for-profit places.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to go to a Shoppers Drug Mart. So here's a guy who's being paid from Shoppers Drug Mart. He's the pharmacist. His salary comes from Shoppers Drug Mart. So I shouldn't be asking this guy, should I be getting a prescription for blah blah or this for-profit, highly profitable Pfizer cough syrup, or should I get the free pharmaceutical? You know, can I trust this guy to make a decision for me which product I should be buying for my whatever infection? And Shoppers Drug Mart has already proved to be unethical. They're, you know, driving their pharmacists to make, you know, if they call me and say, how's your prescription going? Then I say, fine. They bill OHIP $170 for that. And our family doctors can't make $170 for the same thing. So, I mean, there are all sorts of these kinds of things, but that's not at all what we're talking about. So I'll shut up.
No, but I understand because it's almost as if everything is behind a paywall. Again, from being a youth and trying to get outside to finding affordable housing to just finding a community space, whether you're a family or you're newcomers trying to find community, it's hard to find community when everything is very separated, very displaced, or under a paywall completely.
I mean, really, if you're living in a condo in the sky or an apartment in the sky and you travel underground every day and you work in a cubicle in an office and then you travel and then you eat alone and then you go again, how are you going to feel that the world would be less good if you weren't here? Like, how are you going to feel a sense of community? You have no knowledge of community. You know, my nieces who are 16 and 18, you know, look, the pandemic took up a big chunk of their childhoods. You know, how are they going to feel a sense of community or belonging or even know how to interact with strangers? Like, you know, I mean, I'm always all about, you know, I'm you know, I go to the Dufferin Grove Farmers Market every Thursday because they really need some customers right now. It's not like I can afford it, but I'll do it. And I'll see a kid and someone's parents, and the kid's parent says, Erella, meet my kid, whatever. And the kid says, hi. And I say, no, when you're saying hello the first time, you're going to have to make eye contact. And, you know, the kid is, you know, like kids have to learn. Yes.
I would love to hear in terms of sort of making your space. So if you want stronger communities, you're gonna have to be engaged. You're gonna have to sort of happen what's happening in terms of your communities and so on. Would love to hear in terms of how is it that young people are able to reach out to you, whether it be mentorship or just supporting you in terms of the good work that you're doing for our community. I would love to hear how folks can get in touch with you.
Well, I mean, first of all, I have my Friends of Dufferin Grove Park, which is there's a huge I mean, I've been doing this for decades, but it's a listserv, and so there's a huge focus on stuff that's either free or cheap anywhere in the city. So it's not necessarily people like that. But the idea is to become engaged with your neighbors and find out who your neighbors are, find out and really take a dare. Like, like I'm really close to some of the young people on my street who are teenagers and just entering their 20s, because you see each other and you have to make eye contact with people and say, I see you, and it's not, it's like small increments at a time. We have to, my father used to say, the woods would be silent if only the best birds sang, and it's like every bird has to sing, and you have to encourage even the lousy singers to sing, and you have to learn how to talk to one another.
Okay.
Were you about to say something? Your light went on, so I shut up.
Oh no,
No,
I
not
didn't
at
have
all. Just reflecting on what it is that you're sort of encouraging us to do in terms of being involved within our community. Just would like to thank you for taking the time to speak with us in terms of the good work that you're doing for the Bloor and Dufferin community, especially when it comes to the community hub. I do agree that 2,800 square feet might seem small, but it's going to be valuable for the many generations to come with our community. So continue to keep up a good fight and continue to advocate for us in terms of maintaining that space of what it was intended for originally. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, wait, I had one more thing I wanted to say. You were asking, how do people change it? So let's say you live in a building that has like a living room in the lobby. We've all seen those kinds of buildings. Why don't every person who lives in a building like that talk to their neighbors and get a thing organized so that they have I don't know, a board table and maybe a TV. Make it a TV room once a week where they show movies. Make it a safe place where kids can hang out in that lobby of that building, even if it's only the people in that building, where every Thursday you have a bitch and stitch night or a potluck dinner where you see each other's faces. And I did want to say, my dad used to have a lamp factory that made really ugly lamps that sold at Honest Ed's, really ugly lamps. And he was having a problem where people who worked for him were being nasty to one another, and they weren't, they were stealing each other's lunches in the lunchroom and stuff. My dad decided every day he was going to make soup in the lunchroom. My father, the boss, and he gave them, he got the neighbor who made Italian bread to give free toast and jam, and then those neighbors came into my dad's factory at lunchtime. And he found that once people had a full belly, they were nicer to one another, and they'd bring ingredients to add to the soup. And it completely changed the culture of his factory. And we, at the Dufferin Park for many, many, many years, for 25 cents, you could buy a piece of bread and butter. And once people had a full belly and were, able to do this, people were nicer to one another on the shinny, playing shinny, and people were nicer to one another in general. So we have to figure out what small actions we can do to make our immediate, maybe your porch can be a safe place where neighbors could come around and use your Wi-Fi. I don't know, come up with something. But there are always small increments, and really making eye contact with your neighbor, smiling, saying hello there, can really make a world of difference. So I needed to rant that.
Absolutely. I truly appreciate your strong sense of community. I hope that folks that are listening in will definitely sort of take the good qualities. Erella, I haven't met you in the past, so really look forward to sort of getting to know you a little bit better in the future, given that you're in my backyard. So we'll definitely make it a point of getting better acquainted. And thank you so much for taking the time to share with us of some of the good work that you're doing for the Bloor and Dufferin area.
Thanks. Thank you both, all of you.
Yeah, thank you as well. Thank you as well. Again, I like to play that younger person card, but as a younger person, it really opens me up to the possibilities that I didn't even know were really, happening right down the street from me. And it's like, it's nice that because I know it, I could share it with people. So thank you again, yeah, for the work that you do and everything that you're keeping up with to make our community run better.
Sure. And let me know if there's something that, like I said, I am insanely busy. Like yesterday, I had 5 Zoom calls, like, duh, but I just learned how to say yes first, sure, I can do that. And so, but if there's something I can help with, please let me know. And if it's possible for me, I definitely will be involved. I know that Alejandro Bravo is planning some sort of a community thing on, I think I can't remember the date. I think it's a Saturday. It's, I think, April 6th from 1 to 4, whatever is the Saturday. I can look. And she's doing a thing, just sort of a get to know your April 6th, 1 to 4.
April 6th. Okay.
Just in the park to just get to know your neighbors party. And come to the Dufferin Grove Farmers Market, meet your neighbors, buy 1 zucchini or something, just buy anything. They really need to get people in there to support what they're doing. And it is like a town square, and you see your neighbors every week. And when I don't show up, when people say, "Hey, I didn't see you, are you okay?" I think that's a really, really important thing, to notice who's there, who's not there. We all have to we have to get to know each other. So yes, sorry, and I will stop.
Absolutely.
I do agree.
April 6th, I think I'll see you there. That's for sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Erella.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.